in Iran testified before the House Foreign Affairs Committee earlier today. They asked for more help to try to secure the release of their loved ones. Jason Rezaian, Saeed Abedini, Robert Levinson, and Amir Hekmati. Hekmati's sister made an emotional statement today. Her brother has been imprisoned in Tehran's notorious Evin prison since 2011 when the former U.S. Marine was arrested and accused of being an American spy.
As a tourist, Amir was kidnapped from the home of his relatives and taken to Evin prison. As a tourist, he was held in a 1 meter by 1 meter cell, allowed out for only 10 minutes a week to stretch his legs. He was beaten on his feet with cables, tasered repeatedly. He was held for months in solitary confinement. To date, our family feels as though we have exhausted every option. We have reached out to the UN, human rights groups, Islamic organizations, ambassadors from other nations, and we've engaged with high-level officials from the U.S. and Iran.
Sarah Hekmati, her husband, Dr. Ramy Kurdi, and Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan is joining us now. Guys, thanks very much for coming in. Very emotional hearing today. Sarah, when was the last time your family actually got to hear from your brother?
Well, actually, this past year, over the course of his detainment, he's been allowed 5-minute phone calls every day, sometimes a little bit more to my mother. These are sanctioned phone calls. Prior to that, we had no communication with him at all. So this has been a newer development for us, and it's been helpful on the one hand, and then obviously we can't say everything that we want to say.
How's he doing physically?
I mean, physically, in the beginning, he lost over 30 pounds when he was in solitary. My brother's not a really big guy to begin with. I mean, he was athletic, but now, I mean, he's just there. The nourishment, the nutrition there, it's very skim, the rationing, so.
Dr. Kurdi, you're a physician. This has got to be, what, 4 years now? It's got to be an emotional issue as well.
Very much so. We're very concerned about his emotional well-being, but he is very strong, gives us a lot of hope. That doesn't change what it's like when he's off the phone. We are concerned about his psyche and how he's going to be impacted by this.
Hey, what's this, Congressman Kildee, they obviously are from your district in Michigan. You've been taking the lead in trying to generate some outrage out there. Is there any progress at all that the Iranians are listening, that they might release him and these 3 other Americans?
Well, it's hard to consider progress, any progress, when the Americans, including Amir Hekmati, are still sitting in prison. The P5+1 negotiations, the Iran nuclear negotiations, have given us space to have some bilateral discussion. That gives us a chance to engage with Iran. We tend to see that as progress. Progress was made this morning when the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and I was asked to sit in on the committee, unanimously in a bipartisan fashion made a very strong statement that if Iran wants to rejoin the international community, they have to release these Americans, including Amir. That resolution will go to the floor of the House. So it's progress when the United States government speaks with one voice, and Iran understands they can negotiate anything they want. They won't be welcomed into the community of nations until they stop this behavior and stop
But is there any connection, linkage between this and the proposed nuclear deal that's on the table, supposedly going to be wrapped up by the end of this month?
We have to be careful about the linkage. Linkage in the sense that the negotiations give us the opportunity for bilateral discussions, and Iran has to recognize that it's going to be very hard for Congress or anyone to see this agreement, if it is agreed to, as legitimate when they continue to hold prisoners. But we don't want to trade Iran's nuclear capabilities or concessions on economic sanctions for the freedom of a man who simply served his country in uniform and is being held in an Iranian prison because of that.
Is that why they're holding him, Sarah? Because he served in the United States Marine Corps? Is that enough for them to be holding your brother all these years?
I mean, that's what we're speculating, because they've dropped the espionage charges completely when they annulled the death sentence. And then they said he's cooperating with a hostile government. So his cooperation is, for us, what? Serving the U.S. Marines.
And that's enough to hold him?
Even according to the Supreme Leader's mandate, there's nothing wrong with a dual national serving in another country's military. So really, it's not even going in accordance to their own
And the
law.
reason remind our viewers, why did he go back? Why did he go to Iran? His family obviously of Iranian and Persian ancestry, but why did he go back?
So Amir and I, we were all born here in the U.S., and our grandmother would come here to visit. She became elderly. It was hard for her to travel, so he went for the first time. This was actually his first trip, and he stayed there for 2 weeks, enjoyed time with family, and right before he was about to come back is when they took him.
And they took him because they knew he was a former Marine? Is that why?
He was Investigation, and then was really told different things, that he was going to be acquitted and released and that there was nothing to worry about, and now it turned into him being a spy and later cooperating with a hostile government. But we're sitting across the table with the hostile government, so that's what is questioning for us.
Dr. Kurdi, if you could speak to the Iranians who are holding him, what would you say to them right now?
We would implore that they realize that we're not a political family. We never were. That we are not trading a humanitarian gesture for world peace and nuclear talks. Amir deserves to be free, regardless of whatever charges he has. His time is up. There's no reason to have him there. There's multiple outlets to release him. We respectfully implore his release.
And what would you say to the Iranians, Sarah?
I would also, like Ramy's mentioned, that Amir's father has been very sick. He has had terminal brain cancer. He's gone through 2 strokes, and time is limited for us. Amir actually did not even know it for a long time that his father was suffering with this. So we want to put the urgency on the fact that our father is not doing well, and Amir is there. And even in their own accord, they said he could be eligible for a conditional release, for amnesty. So these are things that the attorney there sees are avenues for his potential
I know
release.
you're grateful to Congressman Kildee for his efforts. He's leading the fight. What about the State Department, the U.S. government? Are they doing enough to help your brother?
You know, as a family, it's never enough until Amir's home. And, you know, we as a family want to find comfort in knowing that, yes, it is being raised on a consistent basis, but what is the response from the Iranians? And for now, for us, we see that Amir's been there going on 4 years. When we're sitting across the table with the Iranians, and there have been previous Americans arrested in Iran that came back sooner than Amir has. So that's why we're struggling with this.
Because it's hard for a lot of us who are watching these negotiations. And a quick answer from you, Ramy. You know what? The Iranians are going to benefit tremendously from this nuclear deal. Sanctions are going to be eased. Tens of billions of dollars are going to flow to them. As at a minimum gesture, they can release these Americans.
Absolutely. It's no question that they deserve to be released. Specifically, having vouched for Amir, and his charges against him are really not substantial. So we just implore respectfully. Again, we stay away from that as much as we can, being too political as a family. We understand that that's unavoidable in the media, but we just ask for his release. Well,
let's hope he's released. The 3 other Americans are released as well. Congressman Kildee, thanks very much for what you're doing. Thanks to both of you as well. Good luck.
Thank you for having us.
That's it for me. I'll be back 5 p.m. Eastern in the Situation Room.